Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome to The Show Must Go On line. Today's guest is Qurrat Ann Kadwani. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. Q, it's so nice to see you here. I feel like it's been so long. How have you been the last, it's crazy being an actor and producer and everything you've been doing in this time.
Well, hanging in there, obviously we're in pandemic time, lots of tragedies all around, and just trying to stay focused, stay motivated, and, just keep working hard.
Right, exactly. And staying focused and also appreciating the arts right now. I feel like so many people don't understand how powerful and necessary the arts are, and yet that's what we're all turning to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, actors and artists, we're seeing so many cuts to unemployment benefits, and we literally cannot work. We're being told to find something new to do, change careers. And it's such a bizarre time. And a lot of us have had to figure out how to make our professional careers work right now. I mean, obviously I've received very few auditions from my agent, which is, they're SAG agents. So they're waiting to figure out, as the directives come in from the union, how everything is really going to proceed on TV and film sets. So as actors, we're left to figure out, okay, how am I going to generate income doing what I love to do and with the things that I already have?
Yeah, right, exactly. So let's dive right in. What's your origin story?
My origin story. Well, I was born in Mumbai, India, and I grew up in the Bronx, New York. I went to schools all over the Bronx. I went to the Bronx High School of Science. That's where I was on the speech team, which was part of the National Forensics League. I was even the captain of the speech team senior year. And that's where I really figured out my love for performing, because we would work on various texts, dramatic, comedic, obviously. I would write my own speeches and compete with other high school students all over the country. So I fostered my love for travel and performance all at the same time. And then I went to SUNY Geneseo, which is in Western New York. And I didn't major in theater right away, but the end of sophomore year, I did finally declare a theater major. I just really loved learning about theater. So I was just taking a ton of classes in theater history, global theater, like in all types of subjects. I just really loved learning. And then the dean of theater was like, you're in all these shows, you're in all the classes, you got to declare. So I did finally, and I've never looked back.
Wow, it's amazing sometimes one part of your journey takes you somewhere else. And who would have thought that debate team would kind of foster that creative writing and spirit?
Absolutely. I actually was on the debate team for 1 year when I was in 8th grade, and we won that too. So I have a really strong competitive spirit, and it's not really like beating someone else per se. It's really like being the best that I can be. And I truly want to emphasize that, because that's really where it lies for me. I've always tried to just push myself to the max and say, where can I take this project? How far can I see this go? What success can I really bring to this project? So I feel really blessed that with most of my projects, I've been able to achieve the level of success that I've wanted to see.
Yeah. I feel like that's such a good life lesson to be the best you can be without comparing to others.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think we get stuck in that, especially as performers, because it's part of it, right? We are, in essence, competing with other people to book the role. But it's just a mindset shift, so that you get to understand that there will always be other people. It's not just one person that you're competing against. It's a lot of people that you're competing against. And that will always be the case, not just in acting, but in life. And so you don't have that in your control. All you can control is being prepared and feeling comfortable when you show up for that audition, for that project, and just really enjoying the moment. Because what is success after all? Success is really when you feel that you have achieved true enjoyment in what you're doing.
Yes, I think that's something especially now I've been thinking more about, right? That we think about, like, the awards and we think about the biggest things, but also like, are you having a good time? Because if you don't love what you're doing and it's bringing more stress than it is like enjoyment, then that's not worth it. But if you can find that happy medium where it brings you joy and it brings other people joy, that's really like true success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I continued this sort of mindset even after college. I always talk about taking political theater in college and being moved by the classes I learned with my favorite professor, Dr. Melanie Blood. I always give her a shout out. And I was so moved by how theater could impact social change throughout the world, especially in times of war or social distress, as a way to get the community to come together, tell the community about what the problems were, and motivate people to speak up against injustice and create the change that they desired. And I was so impressed that theater had that power. You know, before TV, before film, thousands and thousands of years ago, people were using this art form to create change. And I think that that's where my passion lies. So even when I don't want to, I find myself gravitating towards projects that have a strong social justice theme or a possibility to change someone's mindset, you know, educational and yet entertaining at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to get into all of your projects because you've done so many fabulous things. And I want to just put this out there that we'll definitely talk about Marisol, which I just saw, and it was so powerful. I feel like that should come later after your the stories that you've actually written and started. So let's start with that. They Call Me Q has been such a triumph, and I've watched so much of the content on YouTube that you've put out there. So tell us about that.
They Call Me Q. It's my solo play in which I play 13 characters in 1 hour. I started writing it now, I guess, over a decade ago at this point. I started performing it in 2012. It's a really fun piece. I remember when I wrote it, I thought to myself, let me write something that I will love performing over and over and over again. And at that point, I thought I'd have maybe 5 shows, to be quite honest. And now it's been over 200 shows later all over the country. So it's mind blowing to me. It's such an amazing accomplishment for me personally, just to see so many people get such joy from watching the show. And I said it in, it's basically self-autobiographical. So it talks about myself growing up in the Bronx, New York, and how different people affected my identity in terms of my very traditional culture and traditional parents, and then various people who I spoke with and who had an impact on my life in the Bronx, in high school, in college, and then going back to India and realizing that, you know, you don't have to put yourself in a box. Other people will do that for you. And we're seeing that right now politically too. You know, you're Indian or you're not Indian, and this is who you are. This isn't who you are. No, that's for me to decide. Yeah. I'll tell you who I am, and I get to decide my identity. You don't get to decide that for me. And I think that's a very crucial message and crucial issue in our society right now in a lot of different ways. And so I feel really happy that I can really push that message forward to college students, especially who are currently grappling with issues of identity in terms of where they fit in and what they are supposed to be doing in their own lives.
Right. And I think identity is something that we're told so early on, like, this is your identity, or check this box when you're, you know, at the doctor's office. And sometimes your identity doesn't fit in a box. Even when it says like other, you're like, well, I don't want to feel like an other. I just want you to see me for who I am. And especially with, you know, you were talking about that you also do coaching, maybe tie in that part about how when you're acting and writing and producing, that it's about more like, maybe is it finding yourself helps with this process?
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I work with college students on is they always say, well, how do I figure out who I am? How do I love myself? And the answer is you have to really get to know who you are. You have to figure out what your voice is, what you truly believe in. You know, don't just look at a headline and because someone tells you what to believe, that's what you believe. Really take the time to do some soul searching, to figure out, like, are you happy? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? What do you really believe in? What are the issues that you feel strongly about? A lot of times people say, oh, like an artist shouldn't talk about politics. And I find myself saying, but art is politics. Art is political. It is all of it. An artist is trying to give their voice, their perspective out into the world. So to say, oh, well, don't tell me anything about politics. Well, then I don't know what you need to watch. But even the cartoons, even cartoons are political. But you know, that's even with coaching, as you mentioned, we get to the truth of the scene. We get to the truth of the character. And I always tell my acting students, there's always a trap in the scene. There's always this one note that you read it and you go, oh yeah, this character's angry. But a lot of times, even in those scenes, there's something more going on. There's a fear. There's an insecurity. The stakes are so much higher, especially when a character is angry, because they're so afraid of losing something. Yeah. And it is your job as an actor to figure out what that is. What is so important here that you have to get what you want in this moment? So it all comes, you know, full circle. And I talk about this in my Q&As at college performances as well after the show. You know, this might just be a show that you're watching, but it's tied to diversity issues. It's tied to immigrant issues. It's tied to what's going on politically, who's in power. Who wants the power, who wants to keep it, and who doesn't want to give it away.
Yeah, it's impossible not to talk about human rights, civil rights, politics, when talking about society, who has not, who's granted these opportunities to go to school, to have after school programs. Like, there are so many aspects that when people say, oh, I don't want to talk politics, it's usually not the people who don't have enough.
Correct. And there are so many microaggressions as well. I remember I had a show, a performance of They Call Me Q at NYU. And, you know, it was such a wonderful show because my brother, who's one of the co-directors of the show, he went to NYU. And so he came to see the show after, I guess, many years working on it with me. And it was an electric show. There were hundreds of students there, and they had lined up to talk to me. And one of them came up to me, and he was Asian. I believe he was Chinese, and he was whispering to me, and I could understand everything that he was saying, but he was talking so softly. And I said, I can't hear you. And he said, oh, I'm embarrassed because my English isn't very good. And I said, it isn't? I understand everything you're saying. And he goes, yeah, I only came here 2 years ago, and I feel embarrassed because, you know, I don't speak English very well. And I said, that's it? Only 2 years ago? If I went to China and lived there for 2 years, I don't think I'd be speaking Chinese as well as you're speaking English. But this is the point, isn't it? That immigrants are made to feel less than. Yeah. You know, when we should really be appreciating the fact that immigrants come here and they're able to speak multiple languages, right? They're able to pick up things and embrace the American culture and try to figure out how to combine both their traditional culture and the American culture. And what do? We make people feel like, oh, your English is so bad. I looked at him and I said, please don't let anybody put you down. You're doing so well here. You're at NYU. You've only been here 2 years. I can understand everything you're saying. Be proud of yourself. This is the message that we need to be giving people so that they can feel secure and confident as they enter, you know, the workplace and try to make some change.
Yeah. Wow, that is such a powerful story. And I wish we could make it more comfortable and accepting for everyone, especially immigrants. Like you're saying, people work so hard to get here, to live the American dream. And I feel like we just throw it back in their face sometimes, like, oh, but you haven't done this, or you're not good enough. Like, could you imagine making that journey and the sacrifice that people and especially parents have to do to make sure their kids live a better life than, you know, they had, and the struggle? And I couldn't believe how many people take that struggle and make them feel bad about it. Whereas I think that it's this beautiful, like, the sacrifice and the strength that it takes to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And another beautiful point of They Call Me Q is while it's for immigrants, myself being an immigrant, I found that no matter where I perform in this country, it could be the smallest farm town, it could be the biggest urban center. I could perform for an all Caucasian audience, an all Black audience, or an all Indian audience. It doesn't matter. Different people react to different themes in the show. They're connecting to the themes of the family structure, love, friendship, getting messages from different aspects of society. How do they feel about immigrant issues, as we discussed? How do they feel about themselves? And at the end of the day, the message of the show is, how do you accept yourself? Because it's the people who accept themselves who are able to accept other people. And that is really what I try to have my audiences understand. That once you accept yourself, you are going to be a much happier person.
That is so true. And right now, all we can do is really sit with ourselves in quarantine and be thinking about it. So I know myself included, there's been a lot of self-reflection and talking with friends and family and trying to figure out like, well, what's the best version I can be? It doesn't always come out, and it's, you know, always a work in progress, but how can we make sure that like the person you see is also the person I see?
Ah, yes. Excellent point.
I want to ask about, because you play so many different characters and you get so into them, whether it's like the different facial expressions and the accents and even the posture, like what's it like mentally to get into those different characters?
Yeah, well, the rehearsal process is very important to me. For both my shows, for They Call Me Q and Intrusion, which is about sexual violence prevention and awareness, yeah. I like to make sure the writing is something that I feel very, very comfortable with. And with Intrusion, I actually had a draft, I would say in 2015. And when I started working on it, I wasn't really amped up about it. Every time I would pick it up, I would put it back down. I would get distracted. And then I thought, what's going on with me? Why aren't I buckling down? I want to perform this thing. And I realized I just didn't like it. Wow. So, you know, sometimes as a writer, you have to be honest with yourself. And so I set forth to rewrite, and I rewrote 90% of it. And I just thought, I'm going to make the writing something that I really want to perform, because that show is very, very dialogue heavy. And it's very fast paced. And so for an entire summer, I rewrote it. And this was right before the Weinstein scandal broke. Wow. So I had been, I was going to perform a show about rape culture anyway. And then all of a sudden it became in the global spotlight, so to speak, and it hasn't shifted. So it seemed like the universe was like, yes, go for it. Perfect time. But after the writing, then I find a director, and then I start working on it in sections and characters. I try to make sure that I have a certain posture, a vocal energy, and a hand gesture for each character. And I also technically in the script, when I'm writing it, I make sure that each character has some sort of activity, because for a solo play, especially, it's difficult for an audience member to just sit there and watch just a person just sitting there talking. I always think about it, how I feel when I'm in the audience watching a solo play. How do I feel, regarding certain solo plays over others? So this is what I do with mine. And then I drill. I really make it muscle memory, so that as soon as I hear even the character's name, I go right into the body posture, right into the vocal energy, and we keep it moving. And my director for Intrusion, Constance Hester, I told her early on, I said, you can't, you really have to be nitpicky with me. I'm going to come to rehearsals with a lot of ideas, and I need you to streamline me and make sure that you're seeing the full arc of the show. And she did a great job, and I couldn't be happier choosing her. And it was so specific, so detailed with her directing. And even now when I perform the show, people come up to me and they notice certain things in the direction. And I always think to myself, well, that's because of the director. Wow.
So do you feel like choosing the right people, whether it's working with your brother or working with her, like that adds a very different element to it?
Oh, absolutely. For Intrusion, for example, I interviewed, I think, about 5 or 6 directors. I sent them the script ahead of time, and in the interview, you'd be surprised, a couple of them hadn't read the script, or they read the script and hadn't really thought about it. You know, I'm in the interview, I'm really looking to you as a director to come to me with new ideas, right? Because otherwise I could direct it myself. I wrote it. I'm looking for somebody to bring me a new perspective, new ideas on how they would address the script. So when I met with Constance, I was like, wow, she really, really thought about it. And she was a recent college grad. So I was quite surprised that, you know, that she had such directorial knowledge, as well as she had a personal connection to the topic, which I also appreciated.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I guess it shows that age isn't really the necessary factor there, that it's the passion and ambition to be the best actor, writer, director, producer that you can be.
Absolutely. And even when I was right out of college, I started a nonprofit organization called iBlink, and I'd hired directors for a lot of projects, and I never looked at age. Age was never a factor. I put out the call, I would set up interviews with directors, and I really wanted to see their perspective on the project, because I mean, it's as a director, it doesn't help anyone to be vague. It doesn't help anyone to say, all right, well, I'll look to you for those ideas. No, you're the director. You have to come with ideas, you know. Yeah. And if the play flops, people are going to look at the director. You know, oftentimes when I see shows on Broadway, and I'm sure you must see this too, I'll often think, oh, I didn't like that part, but that was probably a director's choice.
Right. Yeah, I wonder, so what's it like for you acting in a show that you've written versus acting in a show or in a movie or, you know, TV show that someone else has written?
Oh, well, when I've written, when it's my own play, I had to learn a few lessons there, which are, don't get yourself married to any characters that you've written, and don't marry yourself to all the monologues either, because things might need to get cut even at the last minute. I've had monologues that have had 90% of the monologue needed to be cut. We're talking like a page, you know, or I had one monologue in They Call Me Q that was like 3 pages long, and it had to get cut down to 5 lines. And then with Intrusion, there were things like a line here or there that will be added, or when you're making cuts and then you go back a few weeks later when you're working on it, it's like, wait a second, why am I saying this? Where did this come from? And then you realize, oh wait, that was connected to something you cut earlier. You know, it doesn't make sense anymore. It got to go. So that's a lesson I learned. When you're working on someone else's script, I actually like that too, because I can just be the actor. Mm-hmm. My job is just to bring the character to life. My job is to ask the director questions about my character, the arc of the character. My job is not to rewrite the play or rewrite my lines. That is not my job. So it's a bit more, you know, focused that way for me, to just focus on my character. Whereas when it's my own play, I am focusing on my acting in rehearsal, but then right after rehearsal, I'm then putting on my writer's hat and thinking, wait, so does this all still make sense? Do I need to make any editing changes? Do I need to make any character changes in terms of the writing?
Wow. Right. There's definitely that duality to being so passionate to the words in the script and also to the acting and portraying of it. I could only imagine. I mean, it's similar to me when I have to edit down a video, and I thought like, oh, but I love that, you know, the angle I got with that. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't really, it's not necessary. And you're like, but I want it so badly.
Right. Yeah. Like with my own plays, I'm responsible for all of it. Right. Because when I perform it, it's just going to be me up there. And so people are going to look to me. I think at first glance, you're going to assume that the whole thing, I created the entire thing. Whereas the play that I have not written, people know, hey, I was just the actor. Yeah. You know, there was a writer, there was a director, all of that. So, but you know, both are really fun. And I sometimes I joke around. I say, I don't like to be a producer. I'm just forced to be a producer because I'm a woman and I'm an ethnic woman, and I have to create my own opportunities because there aren't a million opportunities out there. So I, you know, if given the choice, I think I would just prefer to just be the actor. But then every now and again, I see people like Reese Witherspoon, and she's the executive producer on almost every project that she does now. And there's something really beautiful about that too. I'm really inspired by people like her, because I can just imagine she gets all these scripts, and then she's like, when she finds one that she really loves, she's like, you know what? I'm going to help make this project happen. I'm going to become a producer, and I'm going to figure out how to put money, whatever they need. I'm going to help and be part of that team. So I'm inspired by that too.
Wow. That's such a great point too, that sometimes you're given something that you don't want, but if you look at it in a different way, or you get inspired by someone else doing a similar thing, then you take this like negative thing and you turn it into your superpower.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm constantly looking for examples of strong, powerful, inspiring women who are, really taking control of their professional careers. And there's a lot of people who do that. And a lot, I think I saw a lot of times we speed through the credits, but now more and more I'm looking at the credits. I'm looking at who the producers are, and more you'll see that the lead actors are the producers as well.
Wow. Yeah, people used to always make fun of me for wanting to stay till the end of the movie and look, like, who was the audio tech? Who was this? Like, I always wanted to know everyone, even though I couldn't read everyone's name. It was just something my uncle and I used to always do this anytime we'd go to the theater, because we felt like, well, this person worked on this, so they at least deserve to have their name recognized.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we live for those credits.
It's so true. So this actually feels like a good transition to go from plays to some of that on-camera work. So what are some of the projects that you've loved doing the most?
Well, I really enjoyed working on the short film Marisol, which you talked about earlier, which received distribution on HBO. So I'm really proud of that. I actually didn't know that short films could get distribution. So I was so excited when I heard that. And I was just an actor in that film. I was cast as police officer Mac. I remember the audition. I have one navy blue shirt that I buttoned up, and I went in, and I was self-conscious, because in the audition, all I saw were these like big burly men who looked like cops to me, and then here I am kind of walking in, and I was like, whatever, they're casting for 2 cops. And I'm like, hey, they brought me in, so obviously they're open to it. And directed by a woman, produced by a woman. And I believe this to be true. I believe that when the directors and the producers are female, you're going to see a direct correlation to diversity in the project in terms of not only ethnicity, but male to female ratios and all of that. So I thought, hey, I'm just going to go in there and give it my all. And I got a call back, and then I got the role, and I was like, wow, you see, like, I almost psyched myself out there. I thought, oh, I don't look like a cop, but hey, you never know. Give me a police officer outfit and I'll look like a cop. Trust me. So that was really fun. And, it's about undocumented immigrants, a very timely issue. And the person who played the detective, the white guy in the car, is actually the writer of the film. So that's a little nugget of info.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was such an important film to put out there, to give a different perspective on what undocumented immigrants, what the fear is on a daily basis, and also where responsibility lies, and where ICE responsibilities are versus regular police officers. This is not something that we often see talked about in the news. So it was a fresh perspective, and I was happy to play the pivotal police officer in the film, I felt.
Definitely. And, just to talk a little bit more about that, I felt like you playing that role had certainly a different feeling than if it were a white man, or even a black man, or a man of color. Like, having a woman of color play that role, I'm trying not to like give anything away in the story, but I thought that your portrayal of it added that extra layer that was really essential to the storytelling.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating? Like, that's when we talk about casting, and even as it relates to being an actor, that's why we always say, look, once you get called into the audition, that's it. You're being told that you're being considered for that role. It's yours for the taking. After that, a lot of things can happen in the conversation, as you're mentioning, right? I can only imagine what it must have been like in that room with the production team thinking about, all right, wait, should it be the black cop here or should it be a white male? What are we doing? Because a different casting choice is going to yield a different emotional experience. And I think that this is such an important message for actors to know, that it's not just about our performance or acting ability. It's about a lot of different subliminal messages as well.
Yeah. So true. And especially the fact that right now, thinking of the undocumented immigrant story and police brutality, I feel like it touches upon two different things, and maybe not the way in that specific story, but any story with police officers, at least in this specific moment of time, it makes you think a little bit.
Absolutely. It almost reminded me of that movie Crash. Remember?
Yeah.
Where, like, we're talking about people here, and people are multidimensional, and a person who acts badly in one situation might act great in another situation. And there's so much conversation around police departments right now. But one thing is for sure, we can agree that bad behavior should not be rewarded.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Definitely well said with that. So I was watching your actor reel, and I noticed the what would you do?
Oh, yes.
How did you get involved with that, and what was that journey like?
I went in for an audition. I think it was 2009. I've been on What Would You Do, which is the show on ABC, hosted by John Quinones, who also goes by Q. And back in 2009, I went in for an episode called Real Estate Racism, and they pair actors with real people to see how real people will react to real life situations. So in that episode, I was wearing a hijab, and various actor couples would go into an open house in a sort of like $1 million house in Jersey somewhere. And the real estate agent, who was also an actor, and she was so sweet. It was her birthday. She was like 75 years old. And she had to be racist. And the real people were getting so angry at her. And after, when we said cut, she was crying because she was like, they hate me and it's my birthday. And we were like, so sorry. But it came out to be so amazing because we saw that real people will not stand for racism. Even in a affluent neighborhood, will not put up with it, and then a few years later, they called me back for another episode, but this time it was the guest star of the episode. It's called Flat Tire, where one half of it I had the hijab on and one half I did not. I have a flat tire, and we see who helps me in which scenario. And actually it was 50-50 split, where some people walked right away from me when I had my revealing shirt on, whereas some people walked away from me when I had the hijab on. So it was really 50-50, but we saw that the people who helped the most were homeless or elderly or very religious. So I thought that was fascinating. And this show is really to give you an inkling into the psyche, into the psychology of people, and where do we fit, right, in certain situations and circumstances. What would we really do? And now this recent one that aired, I guess it was last week or a couple weeks ago, was just a fun one. It was called Fired Bridesmaid, and I got that also I got this one with no audition. So it was really nice to be invited back. And I'm sort of the bridesmaid who's not doing anything for her friend, with the bridal plans, and she's kicking me out. So I set up the circumstance. I thought to myself, what would make it really hard for the real people to take the bride's side, because you would assume that anybody would be like, well, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do as a maid of honor, then you can't be in the bridal party. So I set up the scenario as I'm getting my PhD. So I've been studying really hard, and like it's time consuming, the paper, and still people were like, oh, well, don't be in the bridal party. And I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, it's her day.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, but my paper. And they're like, no.
Work on that on your own time.
But it was sweet because people were like, well, you shouldn't end your friendship over this. Like, try to work it out, try to come to an agreement. And, people were really like, they'd stare at you, kind of like look at you. And then one person just got up and just approached us and was really trying to be helpful.
Wow. That is fascinating. I didn't realize you've been on it so many times, and to be asked back, that must feel really nice.
It was really nice. I always love no auditions.
I could imagine the audition process is probably the worst part.
Well, it's a lot of improv.
Yeah.
So that's a skill that you have to learn, which I also work on with my acting clients, because you never know what's going to happen in an audition. I've gone into an audition where the casting director said, "Can you put the script down?" So you have nothing to read off of anymore. You just have to go with it. Whereas like for What Would You Do, they literally just give you scenarios and you just have to improvise. There's no script.
Oh, wow.
So, you have to be really on the ball and be a great listener and be able to push the story forward.
Wow, that's really good to know, actually, because I've watched that show a bunch, and I always wondered for the actors part how much was actually scripted and given prompts, but it's good to know that it's kind of like real scenarios.
Nothing is scripted. I mean, we have ear prompters, but they're not really telling us much, and nothing is planned in terms of the real people.
Wow.
Nothing is planned. So there are things that happen on the show where I'm like, wow, I can't believe this just happened. For the flat tire episode, they were like, let's just wait for one more person. And that one more person turned out to be a Muslim imam, a Muslim priest. And he was like, please come to our mosque, learn about Islam. We welcome everybody. We have love for everyone. It's like they could not have planned that. So it's just amazing how the show brings out really the best in people.
Yeah. Amazing. And speaking of the best of people, let's talk about your nonprofit.
Oh, yeah. So iBlink is a multicultural arts organization. I started off right out of college because there was really very, very limited opportunity. And I just wanted to create theater. I wanted to create theater that was multicultural in nature in terms of the content and also with casting, with all parts of it. So we started off with a variety of projects. I had written a play called Beneath the Banyan Tree, which was South Asian folk tales woven together into a singular plot. We had a project called American Colors, where we would take classic plays, for example, Arthur Miller or Eugene O'Neill plays, and I would take that play. Those were usually like 3-act plays. And I would break them into 3 sections, hire 3 different directors with 3 different casts, put them together for one night and see how the audience what the audience experience was with these different casts. So that was a really cool experiment because everyone was able to follow along and know that this was the same play.
Right.
And what we also found in feedback forms was that nobody had any trouble with the diversity in the show. It didn't matter. So that was really quite amazing. And then I had a project called Tomorrow's Gold reading series where we put out a call for new scripts, full-length plays. I had a project manager that would read them and then send me like her top 3 choices. And then I would pick my final choice that would get a couple of rehearsals and then a stage reading. So it was really fun to, give voice to these new plays and to help budding playwrights out and just to sort of keep the ball moving with multicultural programming. So that was really fun. We had a dance department at one point. We also have a special events department. And for that, we have an ongoing charity project called A Slice of Hope. For the last, I want to say now 14 years, I think it's been, we throw pizza parties at homeless shelters all over the country during 1 week of the year. Usually it's in June. Obviously this year, because of the pandemic, didn't happen. But it's now grown to 25 states and it's completely individual donor funded. And what we see is that not everybody who dines in a homeless shelter is homeless. A lot of people, there are a lot of families and children, they're low income, high debt. So we have to reframe that as well. We're helping a lot of people just get some joy with the pizza party.
Wow. I love that.
And also with
Definitely.
live, we also have live musicians. That's the arts angle
Ooh,
for that.
right. Wow. It just goes to show that sometimes like a small gesture, a pizza party with live music can actually bring so much joy and hope and
Oh,
really makes a big difference.
so much joy. If you go to the website, it's asliceofhope.org. There's a beautiful compilation video because all these homeless shelter guests, they'd be dancing to the musicians. And so my brother, Obaid, who runs the project, they created a whole video for it. And honestly, I watch it every year because it will bring tears to your eyes.
Yeah. I'm gonna check that out once we're done with this because that
Yeah.
sounds. I've done some work with homeless shelters and trying to. I think understanding how to give more humanity is really the most important part, and not just being like this general oversight of them, but actually seeing them as humans who have their own journeys and whatnot.
Exactly.
Exactly. Another thing I noticed when I was watching some of your videos was this. I'm trying to make sure echoes of love.
Yes.
I thought that was so powerful and beautiful, and I'd love for you to talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, that was something I started, I think it was 2013. It's a fundraiser for suicide prevention with live music. So I would put out a call for musicians who wanted to donate their time to perform 2 songs in this sort of 2-hour event. And in between the songs, I would host the event and I would give the audience a lot of information to prevent suicide. And, it's something that we should really all learn about, and we don't in school, in terms of like what the myths are, what we should or shouldn't say, how we can spot when somebody is suicidal, like the signs, so that, we can prevent, we can get people the help they need in the time that they need it. So that people don't feel alone. And I think a lot of times people feel alone, reach out to somebody. So if we're equipped with the tools, we can stop a tragedy from happening. And, it affects, I think it's like 1 million people commit suicide every year. And there's certain times of the year where it happens more than others. Right now in the pandemic, it's a terrible situation. Obviously, life changes to contribute to that. But the event is really to help people get the tools they need to help others.
Yeah, and I think once again, it's that live element of the music that it helps soften or gives opportunity to hear these subjects that are sometimes thought of as taboo that should be spoken about more to help other people and help debunk those myths. But by having it in this event where you might come for the music but stay for the education.
Yeah, and it's so amazing. The last few years, the musicians themselves were either suicidal or lost someone to suicide. So they had a real personal connection. They really wanted to be in the event. Yeah. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. I remember one performer, he went up on stage and he told everybody that he had tried to commit suicide, just a couple years back. And, it was very moving. It's also very powerful to actually be able to share that personal story and to tell everybody what prevented you or what helped you. These are the things that we don't talk about, that we don't hear. And also, especially on a college level, going back to that, it's a big problem on the college level. So, and the resources for mental health and suicide awareness are not there.
Right.
So, students are told, oh, well, just go to see a therapist. And then they won't. And then this sort of thing happens. And globally, we see it's very much tied to academics.
Right.
It's tied to, obviously, life changes. But we put a lot of pressure on students regarding their academics and how well they do on tests, especially. And I think we just need like a reframing societally on what's really important.
feel like it ties right back into what we were talking about earlier in this conversation about doing work that, brings you and other people joy, and doing things for the right reason rather than the should, right? I should be doing this. I should be working on this. And just a quick note, I have a friend that has worked with the lifeline, the number that actually helps if people call it, and she likes to give the specification to say that they died by suicide, and it destigmatizes the commit, just like another element to it that I'd never thought of. It was never something that really crossed my mind, but that it's a mental health issue that we need to be talking about more and addressing. And I really appreciate you having these events and really bringing awareness to it.
Thank you. Yeah, I like to even say died by depression.
Yeah.
Because suicide is the manner.
Right.
But it was really, there was a deep-seated depression there. Because as we know, it takes a lot to suicide.
Right.
You have to be in a very specific state of mind. And you have to be 1,000% committed to that. So, there are a lot of resources. I usually raise money for American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. But there are lots of organizations out there. They're doing lots of good work and trying to keep people healthy, try to keep family members of the deceased healthy. Right. And just to reiterate the message over and over again that you are not alone. And I think this is the message that I try to push forth in all of my projects, is that somebody is out there who's felt the same way as you.
Yeah.
Or who has gone through something similar to you. Even when I'm touring my shows, it's like, look, I'm Indian, I'm female, I grew up in the Bronx, and we're so different.
Yeah.
In regards to where we were born, our upbringing, where we went to school, what we look like, and yet you feel like you know me.
Yeah.
You feel like you know my family. So, and why is that? Because we have to look at the similarities in our differences.
Yes. Yeah. That is especially important right now. And I think, and we kind of touched upon it earlier, and I'm trying to figure out the right way to say it, but the shows that you do or that you associate yourself with, even some of the musicians are so diverse. Having someone who is of a different ethnicity or female led, do you think that presents new opportunities for other people that might not feel like they would have been seen otherwise, but by having you as the face and the leader, the writer, organizer, that they feel comfortable in you?
I hope so. I always tell people that I have this never-ending to-do list. I'm constantly working on one project or another, constantly trying to think about what's my next move, what can I do better, how can I promote this project, how can I get this project to be seen. So I hope that people see that and say, wow, I can do that too. I don't have to do, A, B, or C. I can do something else. Maybe I'm not supposed to be a lawyer. Maybe I'm supposed to be a performer. I don't know. But just to not get settled into something just because somebody else told you need to do it, but really looking to see what is your purpose here? Right. How can you make life better for someone else? And maybe it is by being a lawyer. Mm-hmm. Maybe it is by being an engineer or a botanist. It doesn't matter. But how will you use that to make life better for someone else?
Yes, making life better for other people. It's a good life motto to have.
Yeah.
So how, we touched about it a little bit at the beginning, but right now in quarantine, everything is so different, and acting, and whether it's plays or TV, anything online. How have you been handling that and seeing any changes or similarities?
Oh, well, everything is online. So I've been doing a lot of self-tapes at home. Self-tape is when you have to do your audition, tape it at home, online, edit it, and send it in. I've even booked gigs, virtual gigs, where we filmed it while I'm sitting in my house. Recently, I booked a repeat gig with my father. So that was really fun. We were in a corporate video a few years back, and they asked us to reprise our characters in another episode. And so that was really fun because this time we were doing it virtually. And I've been doing coaching, acting coaching online as well. So that's a big part of it. And just try to make sure that people are ready, because at some point things are going to open up. And, while auditions might still be online, we're still going to we might have callbacks in person, who knows. And I've been doing a lot of production items while I'm home now. So I have this other short film, The 5th of November, which we created at the end of 2017. And we had some really great feedback in the festival circuit. We won some awards. And then this year, during quarantine, I was able to secure global distribution for the short film through Shorts TV. So it's going to premiere in the US in the end of September, and then it'll be airing in South Asia, in the Middle East, and South America as well. So I'm really excited about that.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow, that must feel
emails.
Yeah. I could only imagine. I guess that's kind of that funny part of trying to do all these new things, is you're actually reaching so many more people in a way, because everyone's online and everyone's trying to connect. And you can, if you have a video that's online and released in all these other countries and continents, you're giving access.
Yeah, I mean, that's again this sort of perspective shift, right? Because now we've sort of already been online, but now it's even more so. So many film festivals now are entirely online because we're not going into theaters. So it worked out quite beautifully that, hey, distribution is just sort of on their website or through their app, and people can subscribe and watch it. And it's a great thing. I mean, there was a lot of work to be done to get reviewed. And we were lucky to have some really wonderful reviews for the film. The 5th of November is a commentary on gun culture. So it's set, there's the plot, it consists of, I'm the lead actress, and on my birthday, my boyfriend proposes to me, and then there's a mass shooting. So I am the sole survivor of a mass shooting. And then it becomes dark. It's a psychological thriller. And my character is unable to has not yet dealt with this trauma. And I chose this topic because I'm enraged with the NRA and the sheer number of mass shootings that occur in this country every year. And the reason why the numbers have gone down is because schools have been closed.
Yeah.
So we just have to wonder now what will happen when schools open back up again. And also I'm also enraged by the amount of money that politicians receive by lobbyists.
Yep.
Okay. It's just outrageous. It's outrageous. So I wanted to make a film that addressed the topic of the survivors of mass shootings, who we don't really hear about.
Yeah.
I think we heard there was a few articles about the survivors of Sandy Hook, I think it was. Yeah. And now just recently it was the 1-year anniversary of the shootings in El Paso that happened last August, but not really like how survivors are really doing. I think some of the survivors of Columbine committed suicide, actually. So there are long-term effects with this trauma, and I wanted to just give a different perspective in a thriller horror sort of way. So I'm really thrilled that the reviews have come back in such a positive manner, and that we have won these awards, and that even Shorts TV has realized the strength of this project.
Wow. It is such an important and heartbreaking story that is so true in real life. And we often just see, there are so many stories being told the days after, right? The aftermath, the physical count, and the bullet wounds, and the survivors, and the hospital visits, and all of those aspects. But that mental health journey after seeing what they've seen, and the fight or flight, and all these different aspects of going through a horrible situation like that, Like I'm thinking right now of the Vegas concert shooting,
Right.
and just like this, some of these more in-depth stories that I read a few weeks after, and that was just a few weeks, and I felt like I got to know some of the people on a deeper level, which is very hard, but also important to in all of these situations, in all of these stories that people are just saying it's political. There's also humanity. These people's lives were lost, or like these illegal immigrants. They're human beings. There are all of these factors come back to, if you can see these people as humans who have lives and families and loved ones, then maybe you can start to understand why so many of us are advocating for more of these, what do they call it? The like obvious gun laws, or the
Right. Well, gun reform for sure.
yeah.
We see a direct correlation in other countries that have stricter gun reform. There's virtually no mass shootings. And we also have a mental health issue in this country as well. We don't have enough money allocated for mental health resources. And all of this goes hand in hand, and it becomes this enormous problem. And now it's even worse, right? Because now we're talking about schools reopening, and we wonder, oh my God, like, so now there's going to be mass shootings again. There's going to be sexual assault again, and COVID. I mean, it's overwhelming, and we have to think about how, as artists, can we express ourselves? Can we express our rage about these issues? So that's what I tried to do with this film. I have a lot of statistics in this film, just like Intrusion, my solo play. My audiences are impressed and also grateful for the amount of statistics that I have in there, and quotes, actual facts that I include in the projects, because then it's not just my opinion. This is the truth. And the purpose of the project then is to challenge yourself as a viewer to decide what you really believe in, what you truly believe to be true, and what you believe needs to change.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for doing what you do. It's so important.
Of course.
Yeah. So is there anything that you came into today wanting to make sure to share with, this ever-growing audience?
Well, I would just say find out what you're really passionate about, and work to achieving that to the max. There's no, especially when you work for yourself, as I do, there's no rules. All you have to do is get inspired. Take webinars and watch other people's interviews and learn from them, and see what they're doing and what drives them, what pushes them, so that you can understand that you can make a change, you can create change. And I think that this message, I don't think people truly believe that. I don't think that people really believe that they can create a change. I think people think, oh, well, this is just it. Like, this is how it's going to be. And I don't think that's true. I think we all hold the power to make change. It might not be on like the largest, million people level, but hey, if you change that one person, I did a show once where we thought, oh, should we cancel it? Because there were, and I'm not ashamed to say it, there were like 2 people in the audience. It happens sometimes, you're on tour. It happens. And I said, cancel? Why? There's no one in the audience? And he said, no, there's like 2 people. I said, oh, then I'm doing the show. And he said, but we feel bad. Like, you're not used to this. And I said, oh, but I could change that person's life.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that to have sort of like a God complex or anything like that. I mean that to be really like, I'm really being realistic here. And let me tell you, that show, that woman came up to me afterwards and she was crying. She had seen Intrusion, and she was a sexual assault survivor. And she was crying, and she said, you helped me so much.
Wow.
And so whatever I did for her, I don't know what that meant to her, really. Yeah. Maybe she went home and maybe she left her abuser. I don't know. But somehow it affected her. And if I hadn't done that show, maybe things would have gone differently for her. I don't know, but the show will go on.
Yeah. Wow. That is so powerful. It really is. I mean, even with this, sometimes I have like thousands of people watching, and sometimes I have one person. And throughout quarantine, it's really helped me realize, like, I've had, not to that like degree, but I've had someone say like, oh, wow, that was a really great interview. And if you think, oh, well, there needs to be, oh, hey, Slimbo. My dog he loves to be my co-anchor here. It's nice to see you, bud. It's important to not just think of the masses. If you can help one person feel seen, if you can relate to 1-2 people, like, that's fabulous. And I love that that's how you look at life and you look at these plays, and being a, one person play, there's so much power in the show must go on. You're able to do this and connect and have, that one person or 2 people in the audience, they're like, wow, I'm special enough that they would want to do this show for just me. What a special feeling.
Absolutely. You came out to see me. I'm not going to make you drive back home. Absolutely not. I will perform, no problem. And in fact, I remember shows that I have seen that changed me. And I think, what if they had canceled the show?
Mm-hmm.
I might have been a different person. I might not have, what if that first solo play I ever saw, what if that show was canceled?
Yeah.
Right? I may never have wanted to write solo plays. So I always think about that. You never know how you're impacting somebody. You have to speak your truth, and know that it's someone else's truth too.
Beautifully said. I love everything you are saying. So where can the good people find you on social media?
Okay, well, I'm on Instagram and Twitter at They Call Me Q Show, which is also my website, theycallmeqshow.com for that show. I have another website, called intrusionshow.com. I'm on Facebook at Q Kadwani. And those are my main social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I can't do more than that. I just can't.
There's too much. I feel that. I've tried branching out into the other realms of social media, and it's, those are my comfort levels, and sometimes it's good to just, expand in other ways, but stick with what you know in that.
And I'm also updating my website, qkadwani.com. It's I realized I hadn't updated it in 5 years, and I was like, oh, it's time now. Now's the time. Pandemic.
It's a good time to be updating that. I'll certainly go back to my website and make sure that's all up to date, which is bwaySHO.com. As you can see all around here, bwaySHO, that's bwaySHO. Y'all can find me on those social media platforms: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Those are social media platforms. And if you like what you see, you can go to patreon.com/bwaySHO. We do monthly video chats and weekly trivia nights, and it's a good time and a way to support an artist. So there's that. Oh, and YouTube, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I notice you have one as well.
I do. It's my name. I have one for They Call Me Q as well. You can get DVDs through my websites, or just contact me and we'll take it from there.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Q. This was awesome getting to know you better and chatting. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. The show must go on.
It must. We'll see you on the show. Bye, y'all.
Bye.